Hi, class. This is Miss Bacon, and here is part 2 of my lecture for chapter 13. So we left off on this slide. We're talking about steps for filing medical documentation and patient files. So every day you get lots of faxes and you get lots of mail regarding your patients. So you'll get laboratory results, consultation notes, or progress reports. You'll get radiology results, maybe correspondence from the insurance company. So if it's regarding your patient, right, the first step they have here is inspect the report to identify the patient. So you want to identify the patient's name and date of birth. You'll highlight that. And sometimes some places, they're so stupid, they don't put down the patient's date of birth. So you have to call them and verify it just to make sure that you've got the correct patient. And the next step, right, is indexing to determine where you would find the chart. So if you're dealing with a paper chart, you would simply go to the correct file cabinet. And if you're dealing with an EMR, right, you simply can look up the patient's chart. These steps here more have to do with a paper chart system. The next step they have is coding to indicate how the information would be filed in the chart. So just know all the correspondence you get about a patient. If you're dealing with a paper chart, you want to attach it to the front of the chart, put it on the doctor's desk for review. You're going to paperclip it to the chart, and the doctor will sign off on it. And then after that step, then you would file it away in the chart and sort the reports into their categories. So charts are very organized into sections. You would want to put it in the appropriate section, in the notes section, the laboratory section, the radiology section, etc. And last but not least, at the end of the day, you're going to have a stack of charts and you will file them away in their correct file cabinets. So with EMRs, basically, you still want to provide all that correspondence regarding a patient to the provider. He has to sign off on every single item, and they usually initial and date it. And then you would scan it to their chart, but you can scan it to a particular folder in their chart. So that's where you got to be careful and scan it correctly. So if it's a consultation, there's a consultation section. If it's radiology, you scan it in there. If it's a laboratory result, you scan it in there, etc. So you have to scan it into their EMR correctly. So moving on. We have here more filing procedures. They talk about cross-referencing, and this is not that important, but just know sometimes you will misplace a patient's chart. And when that happens, and usually the patient's there to be seen and you just can't find their chart. So you just create a temporary chart and you write on there temporary, and you'll put down, a piece of paper so that the doctor can document their progress note. And when you find the misplaced chart, then you can put it into that chart so that it's into one chart. Okay, so make sure that, you can use that to help yourself out if you ever misplace a chart. The next item they talk about is tickler files. So this is just a reminder for you to follow up with a required action. So at work, I have a to-do file, which is my tickler file. And in there, I have lots of Post-its and pieces of paper of tests that I have to do, because you usually have tasks that you can't get done in one day, and they'll get done the following day. So I put them into that file so that I'm always on top of my tasks and I complete every one. So a tickler file, it's just kind of a reminder to do something. And we have here, the book also talks about common documents you'll find in a patient's chart. So at the very top, for example, in an EMR, you're going to find progress notes. The next section is the laboratory. The next section is radiology. The section after that is usually authorizations. So it'd be like an authorization to get a test done or to see a particular specialist. You would also have their intake form scanned into their chart, their driver's license, insurance card. So those are some of the common things you'll see in a patient's chart. The next item they talk about is the out guide. This has more to do with a paper chart system. So let's say you have a fax that comes in for a patient. You attach it to their chart and you put it on the doctor's desk. Technically, you should put an out guide where their chart should be in the file cabinet. So you're communicating to others where the chart is in the office if they are trying to pull it. So when they go to the file cabinet, instead of finding the chart, they find the out guide that tells them, okay, this patient's chart is on the doctor's desk because we got a fax in regarding a lab result. So the out guide is really, really important to use in a paper chart system so that charts never get misplaced. And the next item they talk about is record purging. So this has to do with inactivating a patient's chart. And this is done, we all pass away. And so if a patient passes away, you can indicate that in both a paper chart as well as the EMR. And that sort of, flags the chart as a patient is deceased. And just know, by HIPAA law, we're supposed to hold on to medical records for 7 years. And then after that, we can shred them. So sometimes your patients, they come to you for a little while and then they move away or switch doctors. So if they haven't been to you in more than 7 years, you have a legal right to shred their chart because you need to make room for other people's charts. So that's a little bit about record purging. Next up, they talk about steps to locating a missed file. So this doesn't happen in EMRs, right? This happens with a paper chart system. So it's really important to use those out guides so that you don't misplace a chart. But just know you can check files in the cabinet before and after where that chart should be to find it. And you can check files with same color coding system. Maybe somebody transposed the first and last name. So you can try to look for it that way. And I remember with our old office, usually there's like only 4 places where a chart could be. It could be on the doctor's desk. It could be on the biller's desk. It could be on my manager's desk. It could be in, waiting for lab results folder. Those were the places it could be. So if I couldn't find a patient's chart, I would run around to those areas and usually I would find it. If I didn't find it, I could just create a temporary chart so that, if a patient was there to be seen, they could be seen by the doctor. And then after the visit, I could spend more time locating that misplaced chart and merge all the documentation into their chart. So the book also talks about disadvantages of a paper chart system. So obviously only one person can look at the chart at a time. We can misplace charts, and lots of storage space is required to maintain a paper chart system. You have lots and lots of file cabinets everywhere. And the book says that it's more susceptible to error, but I kind of feel like you can do errors equally in a paper chart versus an EMR. Both are susceptible to error. So those are some of the disadvantages of paper charts. Now, in terms of an EMR, an electronic medical record, it's mandated by our government that we all use EMRs. And it's a legal document. And it's really nice because your EMR is on the computer and you have a network in which to work in. And I believe EMRs make us more productive and efficient. So in terms of EMRs, they definitely free up a lot of space. You get rid of all of those filing cabinets. And there's a backup system that's maintained by the IT department. Within my EMR, I can fax particular documents to other doctors. If they call our office and, we're part of the patient's care team, we've referred this patient to that specialist, I can, easily fax something to another doctor within my EMR, which is really nice. And in terms of confidentiality, you have to make sure if you leave your workstation to log off, use those black screens on your monitor so nobody outside of your workspace can see what's on your screen. And, make sure to never give your password out to your coworkers, and make sure that you never violate a patient's privacy or confidentiality. Here we have some disadvantages of EMRs. So they need protection to prevent loss of data. They can crash. Computers are expensive to establish and maintain. You also have to buy all of the equipment and then also hire a team of IT personnel to maintain it. They may require on-site assistance. So your IT personnel, they can remote into your computer to fix a problem. And sometimes, too, they just have to come to your site to do something for you regarding the computers. And also with EMRs, the staff have to be trained so that they can use the EMR efficiently and correctly. So those are some of the disadvantages of EMRs. And last but not least, we have an EHR versus an EMR. So an EHR is in a patient's entire health record from all the doctors they've ever seen. An EMR is going to be just from like one provider or one medical group or hospital. Okay, that's how those two terms differ. So that's it for the PowerPoint. I just wanted to show you as well, if we go to the forms, right, with Hoag. So these are the intake forms. This is just the receipt of notice of privacy practices that you have to get signed by the patient. This is that HIPAA form. So you have to get their signature, and their intake forms are, on the clipboard, and then underneath you have the notice of privacy practices that you give to them. They can take it home with them. So this form is saying that you've given it to them and they're acknowledging receipt of it. So this is that HIPAA form we got to get signed for new patients. And we also have here for incoming records, here's sort of the second page. But you can see here, it says up at the top, this is for records coming into your practice, right? So you just fill it out. You just put down the doctor's name, their phone number. You got to get their fax number. So this is the doctor that you're requesting information from, right? Got to put down which doctor is requesting this information. Check off your site location. What are you requesting? Be as specific as possible. And we also have here, it's usually for continuing care. Have the patient initial and sign. And then you fax it off and scan this to your chart so you have proof that you've done that. And then for outgoing records, right? So this is where you're sending something out to another provider on behalf of the patient. So you got to fill out the patient's name, date of birth, and who are you sending the information to? Which doctor, right? So here, this would be like which Hoag location you're sending information from, you're sending it to. And then the rest of it is kind of similar as the first form I showed you. So that's it. Thank you.